Hi everyone, Tu Lee here, one half of the China EVs and More duo. Lei and I are always thinking about different ways to bring you, our audience, relevant and compelling content about the EV, AV, and mobility sectors, especially now that several companies that we've tracked over the last 60 or so episodes have become global phenomenon. China EVs and More Max is where we bring you that special content in the form of conversations we have with special guests from those sectors. In this episode, Lei and I speak with Omer Keilaf, co-founder and CEO of Israeli LiDAR company Innoviz, which officially announced earlier this month a major design win for its Innoviz 2 LiDAR with one of the largest vehicle manufacturers in the world. The selection represents the third major design win for Innoviz, which will deliver the Innoviz 2 LiDAR and perception software as a direct supplier to the multi-brand group to support a series of new products and features from the OEM. This milestone comes less than a month after Innoviz entered into a strategic partnership with Chinese LiDAR system supplier Liangdao Intelligence to accelerate the introduction of series production solutions of high-resolution LiDAR for the Chinese market based on the Innoviz 2. Omer talks about the early days in the Israeli military, starting Innoviz 6 years ago, why he's confident that this is the right time to enter the Chinese market, his views on LiDAR, competition, technology, the difficulties in achieving mass production, and how Innoviz is tackling these issues with unique approaches. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited. Lei and I are excited to have you on the China EVs and More Max episode. Looking forward to learning more about your company and your journey as an entrepreneur. So the first question, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you moved into the LiDAR space and started Innoviz?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for inviting me. So I'm Omer Keilaf, a co-founder and a CEO of Innoviz. I started my career as an engineer in the army of Israel. And as you might know, in Israel, everyone goes to the army. And I've served for 7 years in a unit which is very technical. So I was acting as an electric engineer in the intelligence force, developing quite interesting technologies. It was I would say it's a very small kind of unit, but developing quite unique technologies. And I think that through the course of those 7 years, I've seen how impossible problems are solved by enough commitment, knowledge, and will and dedication. And I think that that bug bit me, and it left me with an infinite desire to continue to do things that are very challenging. And I was always looking to do things that are impactful. After 7 years in that unit, I was in 3 startups. One of them was acquired by Apple, and the other one was acquired by ST Microelectronics. And the third one is still running. And I started Innoviz 6 years ago to develop LiDARs because someone told me that it's impossible. Someone argued with me that that never will work, and that's a problem that too many have tried to solve, and and it really is something that is very difficult. And I was very intrigued to do that. And I also come from my personal background. I come from a family where my older sister went into a very serious car accident when I was a kid. And in a way, even though I was not physically, hurt in that accident, it obviously had a huge effect on the way that I lived my life later, through the change of the career of my parents and dedication to help my sister. And I definitely know the importance of solving possibly the most dangerous activity that we are all still facing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, we still need to travel from one place to another, and that's the most dangerous activity that we are still carrying with us. And there is no good reason that with better technologies, we can avoid that. And again, not only being hurt, but also the damage, the collateral damage to, many families and societies. and it's really in our grasp. I mean, this is really achievable. I'm happy to push in that direction. I mean, it is very difficult. The guy was right. It is very difficult, but it is possible. And I'm happy that we decided to be committed to make it happen. That's what we've been doing in the last 6 years, and actually seeing coming to reality now.
Great. Any special meaning to the Innoviz name?
Yeah, so Innoviz comes for innovative vision. So in a way, we are developing a vision system, but a very innovative one, and with a good feel of the vision that we have for autonomous, safe mobility, and we also eventually people mostly know Innoviz as a LiDAR company, but I actually see ourselves as something slightly different. I want to see that what we are doing is really trying to solve difficult problems that are important for mobility, and we will do anything that we will see as a roadblock technology wise that would become a roadblock to enabling scalable solutions for autonomous vehicle. We will go in that direction and try to solve it. And following that, I would say, methodology or vision is explaining some of the activities that we've done in parallel. For example, we are not only developing LiDARs, we're developing also all of the software, the perception software that is needed in order to take the 3D data and translate it to meaningful information, object and classifiers. And you might argue, I mean, at the beginning, many have argued, why are we wasting our time to develop software while the biggest challenge is still developing a LiDAR? And maybe we should let our customers deal with the software and only focus on developing the LiDAR. And after talking with the industry and trying to understand how they see the challenge in front of them, it became very clear to me that most of the car makers, if not all, do not really want to deal with the raw data of the LiDAR. They do want to get a secondary sensor coming from a LiDAR that provides them redundancy from cameras and radars, but they don't have internally not the desire or the capacity to really build all of the data and collect it and annotate it and develop the algorithms that are needed that eventually would allow them to use it. Car makers want a product, they don't want a sensor. They want a product that the interface between the LiDAR and the compute module is basically identical to what they get from a camera. Imagine that there is just another interface that if you only look at it, you could actually think that it comes from a camera-based solution, but it's not. And they want to do the sensor fusion in a manner which each interface backs to the other, gives a redundancy, and they really care less whether it's a LiDAR, a telepathic sensor, or a bird that tells them what happened. They just need something that is robust and redundant to each other, and that's how they want to develop the software stack. Understanding that it is difficult to develop perception software. It's not similar to cameras. You need to deal with a new modality, and it requires a different treatment and pre-processing and really a new, I would say, world of algorithms. We started to learn what's available. I mean, what are the tools that are available to analyze 3D data? And we actually saw that it's quite new. At the time that we started, there was almost no work done on developing perception software on LiDARs. And we knew that it might become, eventually it might become another bottleneck. I saw it always as a blind spot in autonomous, in the mobility space, that people underestimate the complexity and the dependency on such an automotive grade software stack that car makers will eventually need. And that's why we decided to do it from the first day. And it's completely, you can say, it's not a LiDAR, right, solution. It's a complete stack that we developed. And I think that today, we have 3 design wins so far. We have a design win with BMW. That design win was completely dependent on our ability to provide them also the perception software. We just announced a few days ago another design win, a very major one with one of the largest car groups in the whole world. And that also required us to serve not only our LiDAR, but also our perception software. So definitely our strategy and understanding the needs of the market was, I would say, was right. And I can say that as we go further and we see the hurdles of developing a platform that is based on 3D data, there are more activities that we see that are causing difficulties and delays, and those are things that we are now incorporating into our, I would say, activities. Those are related to data validation, production validation, all of the things that when dealing with a very unique new kind of sensor, which no one ever have done before, and they're struggling with it. We don't want every car maker to go through those hurdles, and we understand that we need to take more and more roles in having a LiDAR going to automotive programs. It doesn't make sense that each car maker would do it. And that's why in some way, the new program we announced a couple of days ago, we're not acting as we've done in the BMW program. We're not a tier 2. We are actually acting as a tier 1. And that's a huge step. I mean, and for sure, being a direct supplier for such a car company requires quite a lot of responsibility, because when and I know many tier 1s that would have loved to be a direct supplier for that car maker, but it comes with much responsibility. And obviously, we had to go through a very long process with the customer to make them feel comfortable that Innoviz could become a direct supplier for such high volume in series production, serving, by the way, multiple brands and multiple car lines. It's not a very simple thing, but we were able to reflect to them all of the benefits that come from a program that is not now split between a tier 1, tier 2, and our ability to scale our efforts between different brands and different car makers, in the sense that eventually they get a more mature and less expensive, I would say, also from development terms, made a lot of sense. So we did. This new design wins is the first for our second generation product, Innoviz 2. We have 2 design wins with Innoviz 1. Now it's the first design win we have with our second generation, which is for us very important. It lends a lot of confidence to many other car makers, but also the first design win for us as a direct supplier. And that's even bigger, because that's a huge, I would say, advantage to any car maker that is now doesn't need to be dependent on a very specific tier 1 globally, right? Once you win a program with a tier 1, you're basically somehow dependent on it to be able to serve another car maker, which could be in a geographic that is not relevant for it, and then you need to split your work, and it's very difficult. So now being our own, I would say, tier 1 allows us to amortize a lot of effort between different car makers, allowing us to provide them a very attractive commercial, offer, and shorten the time for everyone. Sorry for this long answer.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
Great. That was a lot of information. We have a pretty good idea of who it is, but I guess the announcement will be forthcoming. But let's go back to the future a little bit. Let's go back to 6 years ago when you started the company. And if we talk about 2015, 16, 17 timeline, if you remember, the big news during that time was the Intel's acquisition of Mobileye, $15 billion, right? And the other one was the BMW Intel Mobileye project that was aiming to put AVs on the roads by 2021. And that hasn't happened. So going back then and now comparing now, what's different? What do you think is different in the global? We'll go into China in a bit, but in the global LiDAR competitive landscape, What's
Yeah.
different then versus now?
I think that, look, at 2017, you would hear about a new LiDAR company every day.
Yeah.
I remember it was such a horrible time where every day I get a new text message with, oh, see, here's another LiDAR company. Oh, see, here's another LiDAR company. And
From China.
obviously, yeah, I mean, and it's like faster than mushrooms after the rain. And obviously, as an entrepreneur and as a person that wants to lead this team, and it's obviously very important to do a reality check, right? That you are doing the right thing, and you don't want to be surprised that eventually maybe there's a better way to do what you're working on. And of course, and I always told my team, I mean, the people that we brought into the company, I want them to be busy with doing things that eventually matter, right? And if eventually that's why it was so important for me to understand that I'm targeting them in the right direction, that we are really doing the technology that is the right one. So every time we hear about another LiDAR company, we would, study, try to find the background and try to understand whether, we see any advantages or disadvantages. And I have to say, I'm very proud that 6 years later, very confident with the architectural decision that we made. I think the first point of time where we felt that we made a good decision was our design win with BMW in beginning of 2018. And at that time, we had basically almost nothing. I mean, we didn't have yet our LiDAR available. BMW chose us for two main reasons. One, they agreed with our strategy. They believe that the way that we are thinking about how to solve this problem is the right path forward. And the second was that after, I think, 8 months of due diligence, they felt that we are capable, that eventually we will be able to perform to all of what we've shown them. And we went in very deep details. And since the kickoff, they've been super helpful. I mean, the help that we got from BMW was crazy. I mean, Innoviz today is really just because of all of the support and help and that we've been given by BMW on a daily basis, even today. And I owe them a lot of gratitude. And we announced a couple of days ago the new design win, and it was important for me to tell the person that leads the activity there. He's a good friend of mine, and it was very important for me to give him my personal commitment. That it doesn't change our focus in supporting their launch next year. And we are determined to have our LiDAR on the road and make them very successful. I think that's part of for us, it's very important that our customers succeed. And I know that, I told him also that possibly that it's not even needed because you know how committed we are anyway. But of course, I didn't want anyone to think that, now a new design and we are diverting resources to somewhere else. That's for sure not the case. Now, over the course of years, of course, we continue to develop our technologies. And we did our first design freeze in beginning of 2018 to start ramp up the production and industrialization of Innoviz 1 to meet with BMW plans. But obviously, in parallel, we continue to develop the technology and bring in the second generation of our chipset. I mean, Innoviz 1 is based on a chipset that we developed through the process of the program, but we continue to improve each of those components. And that chipset is now used in Innoviz 2. That's the second generation. There, we are relying on the same architecture, but there are many improvements, very significant improvements that allowed us to improve the performance by a factor of 30, and reduce the price in 70%. Now,
Wow.
Obviously, it was a very major, I would say, improvement, and I think the creativity of the team, but also, learnings that we have from the first program and understanding better how to do things in a better way resulted in the new product. I have to say that the new customer have really pushed our envelope very strongly. It was funny because, we did a celebration 2 days ago, and I was showing, it was a 2-year process. I mean, We started the discussion about 2 years ago. I remember coming to the customer with, at first we came with a new design and they said, no, it's not good enough. And then we came, I think we redesigned our product probably 15 times until they said it's like, that's good. Like that's what we're looking for. And I think that in many places, external forces, customers really drive the most out of you. Not understanding that you need to achieve better from an important customer is probably the best the best force that you can get to push your team to try to make the most. And in many ways, the result of the Innoviz 2 is just because they pushed us strong enough to do better. Who knows if they've continued to say no, maybe, I don't know where we could have gone. But I'm happy that at some point they said it's good enough. But it is really a good product. I'm very proud of it. And of course, after we met all of the requirements and timeline plans, we had to go through a very long process to become a tier one, because it was important for us to go in that direction. Becoming a public company allowed us to raise quite a meaningful amount of money, which we saw as an opportunity to show the customers that we are financially robust and they can count of us as a tier one. We didn't need to buy any, company here or buy any technology. It was mostly to fund our activity, and we started the process with the customer. Now, coming into this process, it was very obvious. I mean, at first that they were, I would say, very not very positive that this could actually lead to us becoming their supplier, because this is a very conservative group that they don't have too many direct suppliers. But we actually showed them that Innoviz, although we were a tier 2 in the first program, we are much more than that, because even in the BMW program, we were responsible for the development of the production tools. We were responsible for all of the quality testing, the design validation. There were many things that over time we learned that, because we know better the technology and we know all of the kind of the corner cases, it makes more sense that we will take ownership for it. And we were able to show it to the customer, showing them that we're actually a tier 1.5 more than like a tier 2. And very quickly, after several discussions over things that they had to test us for, I saw that they became very intrigued by the potential of this, I would say, engagement. And they found a team that is very knowledgeable in automotive. I mean, those are all things that are unrelated to the LiDAR. I mean, those discussions are for things that make sure that you meet their group standards for supplier management, cybersecurity, AUTOSAR, quality assurance, etc. These are things that you, like when I started Innoviz, I never thought that, these things will, that will be where my team would be so strong, right? I mean, you start by trying to develop a technology, a LiDAR, it's being such a strong company in automotive, was something that I actually learned through this process. I learned how capable and knowledgeable my company is in automotive after the experience we gained. And it concluded around November last year when they gave us the official tier 1 kind of position. And we were waiting for a decision. The decision was supposed to be done in November, then it was pushed to December, and then it was pushed to November, to January, and then it was pushed to February, and then it was pushed to March. And lucky for us, they also started to feel that it takes too long and decided to give us the formal nomination. I got the letter last Friday. I can't express enough how stressful my last 6 months were. Being a public company is so fun. No, I know it's not. It's a complete. It's not fun. I mean, look, we came from being a startup company, which obviously mostly focuses on its growth, right? You need to invest in your future. You develop technologies to win big deals, and then you become a company that basically need to give a report every quarter, and you need to show how one activity affects the next quarter and the next quarter. And and the sales cycle in automotive takes time, right? I mean, this is the deal that we've been working for 2 years, and although we were expecting this to be decided, already last year, some investors might not understand what things are happening in the background, and you can't even say anything because the nature of the industry that we are working at is also very discreet. I mean, you can't even today. I haven't told you yet who's the customer. I mean, this is how messed up this is, right? I mean, you can't. It's like this is a very discreet industry. It's not very common that you hear. When was the last time you heard that? I don't know, Conti won the camera business for one company they don't issue press releases for any decision made in this industry because it will create a lot of noise. And, at the time that we announced on our design win with BMW, they told us it was a mess because now every tier one has to do a press release about the gear, about the wheel, everyone wants to say that they are in the next generation product of such a premium vehicle. So it creates precedent that they don't want to be dragged into. But that's going to happen anyway. I mean, we expressed the importance of doing a joint press release with this customer, the new one, and we do expect to do a joint press release later this year, hopefully not too late from today. I think it will be a very exciting. Although you know who it is, right? You said know who it is.
Yeah, we pretty much know who it is.
First of all, congratulations originally on your BMW Tier 2 partnership and now with this new customer. As someone who worked at a legacy OEM in the sourcing department, I do know how difficult it is to become a Tier 1 supplier. All the qualifications, all the credit checks, all the checks that need to happen in order to become an OEM supplier. But let me assure you, having spoken with, and Lei can also assure you, having spoken with a lot of the legacy OEMs over the last several years, you're teaching them as much as you're learning from them because this is brand new to them as well. Okay, so I think you're probably injecting a certain amount of new blood into their systems, and they're getting excited because they're going to use Innoviz as a validation that their technology is going to be leading edge, right? And so it's a two-way street. You're going to be using them because they almost automatically validate Innoviz as a real technology, right? Or a solid player in the LiDAR space. And so one question, and we'll move it over to China right now. You recently established your China subsidiary and announced a strategic cooperation with Liangdao Intelligence. Why do you think it's the right time to enter the Chinese market?
Okay, so there are two, I would say, key strategies around the relationship with Liangdao. The companies that we work with, that we have a design win with, are also very focused on China. Okay, so they plan to deploy these vehicles in China. And as such, obviously, our perception software needs to be trained also in the Chinese area, right? Now, we can't collect data in China. That's not, we can't do that. And we need to rely on a partner that can do it. And of course, this is a perfect partner, which also has partnership with our customers. It's a really good fit. Beyond that, of course, they are also a partner to deploy our technology in the Chinese market, as you said. The reason that I think it's a good timing is because Innoviz 2, the new generation, solves some of the friction that we had before in the Chinese market, because Innoviz 1 was a really good product, but it was too expensive for the Chinese market. In the deployment of some car lines in China, there was a very strong, I would say, tendency to cost versus the performance of Innoviz 1. And I think that with Innoviz 2, we are not only solving that friction because of the price point, which is becoming even competitive in China. I think it's also going to be a very strong solution that can take them further along. I mean, the solutions that today you see being used in some car vehicles in China are mostly for ADAS, or I would say first launches that I don't see, I don't expect them to go very long because of the limitations of those solutions in terms of resolution and range. Innoviz 2 brings the ability to support not only level 2 because of the pricing, but also level 3 and level 4 because of the performance. So from that perspective, I feel more comfortable and confident that this solution has a long-term opportunity in China and not too short. I mean, we had some thoughts of possibly doing kind of like a foot in the door kind of project. Let's bring in Innoviz One with one of the customers, even if we lose some money, even if we it's not a large volume. But I felt that it will be a waste of time. I actually prefer to wait for Innoviz 2, come in with a product that I see has a long-lasting, I would say, kind of potential. And I think that's why it's a good time now.
There's a couple of your competitors, your contemporaries, have also recently opened offices in China and Shenzhen. So it's the right time. I think there are a lot of mass market companies that are putting LiDAR into their ADAS systems. So I think the volume is going to be there. And as you said, at a 70% price point down from Innoviz One, it sounds like it would be competitive in the China market. So
yeah, it definitely will be. And look, Innoviz strategy is to continue to secure more design wins in the automotive space. With this new design win, which is backed by one of the largest car makers in the world, gives us a huge commitment for very high volume. And that allows us to support and to commit to even car makers that don't come with that high volume, right? I mean, not all car makers in the world can give you a commitment to millions of LiDARs. And you don't want to lose that opportunity. On the other hand, you don't want to do a design freeze and to commit to a certain timeline and product. I would say that doesn't have a good fit to the rest of the market. Having a design freeze with such a strong customer allows us to reach high volume, which definitely will allow us to offer our LiDAR even for car companies that are planning a more soft launch, and we will be able to support them in very good, I would say, pricing, and also we don't need to offload R&D cost on them. So I think that's what the market needs. That's why I think that this design win will also have a big impact on other car makers. I mean, everybody's been waiting, right? I mean, you've seen many car makers sitting on the fence, trying to kind of figure out, where this technology is going, which LiDAR is going to be the winner, right? I mean, and I think that everybody knows that the level of due diligence that was conducted by this car maker for the last 2 years and eventually decided to use Innoviz is a very strong vote of confidence, and they rely on them to be able to bring the product to the right level of quality and maturity. And now Innoviz, because we are a direct supplier, we can actually serve everyone. We don't need to replicate a tier one relationship in different geographics. We can do it internationally.
So a quick question: can you confirm this design win is for it's global? So
yes.
it includes different markets, including China?
Including China, yes.
Okay, so Omer, one of the big LiDAR companies in China is Hesai, right? And so ex-Velodyne employee that started this company in China, and quite a few of the Chinese EV companies are using the Hesai LiDAR. So what are the advantages that Innoviz, let's say Innoviz 2, has over the Chinese competitors? And, it sounds like you're going to be able to compete on price. So how do you differentiate your product from some of the Chinese competitors?
So, I won't pretend to know everything that they're doing, but I would say that Innoviz 2 architecture is very lean. It relies on in high level, we're using 905 nanometer, which is basically, in a way, some of the reason of why we're able to take our costs dramatically lower than some of our peers that are using 1550 nanometer, and we're using only one laser. Most of the LiDAR companies are using tens or I don't know, sometime above 100 laser diodes to cover the entire scene. We are using only a single diode, so obviously it allows us to bring. I mean, I don't think of there is a way to make it significantly lower than that. I'm kidding. So it's really is the leanest possible architecture which I can think about. And it obviously, it's one laser, one detector. So we only use one collimating lens and one collimating detector. I mean, it breaks down to very few components, but we don't we really don't lose performance. And we actually have improved the performance by 30 times between the first product. So the one aspect, of course, is the performance. The other aspect is the price. But the other aspect that I think less discussed in this market is related to the automotive experience that we bring in. Innoviz spent now 4 years working with one of the best car companies in the market, BMW. Now signed an agreement as a direct supplier to another very big car company. This adds a lot of value to the customer. As you said, we do bring a lot of knowledge and know-how and lessons learned. I mean, part of what we tend to do when we meet with customers is to share our experience in bringing LiDARs to automotive and in level 3, and they definitely appreciate it. We're trying to save kind of the lost time and not repeating mistakes that we see in project planning, and trying to give our experience of what worked well, what didn't work well, how we should do things. And I think that risk is a key in those programs, because look, take into account this program that we just won. The customer have spent 2 years in making a decision, and then now it's going to 3 years of development and testing, to make the car available and the platform available, and then deploy it for 8 or 10 years. You're talking about a decision that is going to be very critical for the next, for a total of almost 12 years, if not more. And it's a very dramatic decision because of that timeline. So you need to make sure that your decision is the right one. And because LiDARs are so different than each other, making a bad mistake could be very costly. And I have to say that I've seen car makers making such decisions in the past, and you can reach a dead end with a platform that you already invested hundreds of millions of dollars that eventually don't have any future, because it doesn't meet the requirements. It became too expensive over time and doesn't meet the features that you need. Being able to, being chosen by two major car makers allows car makers to feel more comfortable, more confident. We already have millions of kilometers driven in testing the architecture. And that's a very important thing, because with LiDARs, there is a very, very different, very, very big difference between a LiDAR and an automotive LiDAR. And the reason is that, a LiDAR is an optical sensor, and it's also very susceptible for different optical artifacts that could happen on the road because of different things that you can see on the road that can shine or blind you or create noise, etc. I mean, it takes one artifact that happens too much that can kill the entire concept. And those could be things that you only learn when you drive, a few hundred of thousands of kilometers. And it sounds not a lot, but, to get to a point where the car is already driving that mileage sometimes take a long time, right? Because at first you're doing tests in the labs, and then you do in a few kilometers. I mean, by the time that you get to drive millions of kilometers, it could be too late,
right,
to learn about something that could actually kill the entire concept. And I think that this is something that car makers understand, that there is a risk in using new technologies in the car, which they might not unpredicted, all of the issues that might come up. And with our technology, this I think that we carry enough to understand everything that we need in order to not have those issues in the future.
Got it.
So we talked about some of the technical details. Now moving on to production. So a famous line would be, prototype is easy, production is hard. And we've heard that many times. What makes it difficult to go into mass production? So one reference point we can mention is Valeo just produced their 100 millionth camera, right? In order to go into that massive scale, what has to happen?
Well, it's you're right. I mean, production is production hell, right? I mean, it's and I have to say that when we first ramped up our first production line, it was in Germany. It was managed by JBIL, which is our contract manufacturer. It was on March 2020. Now, reminding you what happened in March 2020, we couldn't send any engineer to our new production line for over a year and a half.
Jeez.
And while you're trying to ramp up your production line and none of your engineers can actually enter it, you can't imagine how horrible that is. Okay. And it did took a huge effort from all of us, including myself. I was in a room for over, I think, 6 months. We were in what we call the war room, which all of us was in the room trying to talk with the engineers in Germany, trying to understand, what's going on. And it was very difficult. That's part of the reason, by the way, that today we are producing our NPI line, which is the production line of Innoviz 2, the new introduction line, is done at Innoviz in this building. Everything is done here. I'm not willing to have it anywhere in the world, just here. And that's a huge advantage today, that we have everyone that we need to come to the clean room and see the process and understand what it is. Now, to your question of why what's it takes to get from a few samples to 100 millions. So it doesn't happen in one step. Of course, there are different stages in automotive where they are called A sample, B sample, C sample, D sample. And this is a very known method in which car makers are using to get there. So there is a certain list of requirements that you need to meet in each stage. B sample basically means that you need to go through design validation. It is very important that you do not move to the volume production before you make sure the design feature-wise is met. I mean, you want to make sure that nothing is doesn't meet the design. And when I'm talking about design, I'm referring also to the temperatures, vibrations. That nothing in the design of the product is allowed to change once you pass to the C sample, and it requires sometimes many iterations. I mean, in the Innoviz 1. We've gone through 5 or 6 iterations of the B sample to get to where we need to do a design freeze and move to the next stage of going into volume production of the automotive grade. I mean, you finish the B sample when you have an automotive grade product. You go into the C sample where you basically need to meet all of the production validation tests, and there. It means that you need to take into account all of the tolerances of all of the components that are part of the design. Now, a LiDAR is using multiple components and lenses and optics, right? And you need to take into account in your that all of those components are produced in different places in the world, and you need to make sure that no specific batch of a certain supplier is somehow suddenly taking you out of the spec. You need to make sure that all LiDARs act the same, and it is a repetitive effort that you need to do in very high volume. Now, specifically because this is also a functional safety product, meaning that this product acts for safety, you can't build it manually. Everything has to be done automatically. So most of the effort that you need to do meanwhile designing the system is also designing the production, because when you talk about automatic production, it means that you need to design machines that produce LiDARs. Okay, so for Innoviz 1 and now for Innoviz 2, we have designed a clean environment machine that basically has robotic arms that places all of the optics accurately. And yeah, I mean, definitely, eventually you need to have a station where you press a button and you get a LiDAR at the output. And you need to make sure this button, even though you press it 1 million times, it does this, like the actual result would be the same. And the process has to be accurate. You need to make sure that, the gluing process and the tolerances of the machine are all repetitive. Once you get to a station that does that, then you can basically ramp up volume, because you don't want to do that while it is producing bad units. The next step is related to the testing. So before you ship a product to the customer, you need to test everything and calibrate it. Of course, for a sensor that should be able to detect small objects at 200 meters, you don't want to have in your production line a test line of 200 meters or 300 meters. And that obviously requires some creativity on how to test a LiDAR that needs to be able to see things at 200 or 300 meters, but making sure that no product that you ship to a customer meets everything, not meeting everything. So that's also automatic. So we have designed what we call an end-of-line tester, which is, again, it's like it's a chamber which is a few meters length where you place the LiDAR. It uses several targets that move in and move out and adds different ways to calibrate all of the components. And once you go through the script, you ship it to the customer. It's a very long and exhausting process. It is production hell, by seriously, but once you have tailored it, then you have a machine that produces LiDARs, and that's fun. Then you just produce them. You can duplicate it. You can do it in many regions in the world. I mean, we have produced several machines that produce Innoviz 1, and we keep one in the US, we keep one in Germany, we keep one in Israel. And you don't only produce LiDARs, you produce capacity of LiDARs. And it makes it very scalable and being much less dependent on a very specific, manufacturing line. Because, even if I want to produce now LiDARs in Thailand, I don't need to train the team in a very long process, because they are getting a machine that produces LiDARs, then they need to feed it with components.
Got it.
Produce where you sell. Is that a strategy for you?
So we sell LiDARs to automotive and non-automotive. Automotive is mostly to support customers in their pre-development stages, but non-automotive because we do need to aggregate revenues across multiple industries. There's going to be still some time before all car makers would use a LiDAR. And in the meantime, we are generating revenues from many markets that were built by other LiDAR companies. Next year, we're also coming with another product, which is the 360. Innoviz has also developed a very interesting category LiDAR for the 360, which is going to be also significantly cheaper and better than the existing solutions, mostly serving non-automotive applications, but the market there is quite large, and it's quite funny to see that even though most of the LiDARs used today in non-automotive that are 360, the LiDARs haven't made any progress. I mean, it's still very expensive, still very big, performance is not very high, and we were able to take the Innoviz 2 architecture and basically use the same optical backbones, but spread the light differently. I mean, Innoviz 2 is like a projector that looks to the front of the vehicle. And with the Innoviz 360, we're using the same architecture, only that we are using a different scanner that scans around the scene. And since the optical budget is so high, I mean, the performance is so high, we get very, very good performance, even that we spread it in a 360 manner.
Okay. Can you give us a quick tutorial on like MEMS versus OPA and why Innoviz chose MEMS versus OPA?
Well, it's because OPA doesn't work.
Let's go to the next
Yeah,
question.
let's go to the next question. Okay, so let's ask you this.
I mean, you're welcome to expand on that, but
Yeah.
I mean, when we started, we tried to explore the different ways to develop a LiDAR, and it was important for us not to just rely on what we see available today, but also what will be available in the next few years, because you need to set a certain vector that is also aligned in what's the time that the market would actually make a decision. And our analysis showed that OPA is a technology that is far from being mature, but also from potential point of view, it's very limited, and I don't see it very relevant for this, I would say, industry. We've seen that MEMS is a relatively mature technology at the time that we started, and we understood that there is still a lot of room for it to improve, and that's what we decided to do. So we took a relatively very unique technology in MEMS, and that was very, very at its early stages. We brought the right talent. I myself have quite a lot of background in developing a solution by MEMS, and we decided that that would be the right fit in terms of time and performance and price for the market. And I feel that it was the right decision, and not other technologies that we believe.
So too, I'm really interested to hear Omar's opinion on the debate on the number and location. Maybe you want to.
Yeah. So, I mean, Chinese EV companies right now are really leaning into, we have over 30 sensors, we have over 40 sensors, we have 3 LiDAR, we have 4 LiDAR. And is, in your opinion, is more just more, or is more better? And if more is just more,
my CFO likes that there's more.
Yes.
I won't fight anyone who wants to buy more, but eventually it's the business case, right? I mean, I believe that probably you're referring to companies that are trying to develop level 4, level 5 kind of applications. Our key focus right now is mostly level 2 and level 3, and even at level 3, you don't really need more than one LiDAR. I'm happy to sell anyone wants more, but one is enough. I mean, that's what we see also in the market, and the reason that we are focusing on those levels is because those are the levels that we expect to go to volume faster than the rest.
Right.
Those are the passenger vehicles. You won't see a passenger vehicle with level 4 anytime soon in the next decade, and that would be a waste of our time and focus. And I think that was also part of our strategy from the first day. We were very certain that the volume would come from passenger vehicle. They cannot absorb more than one LiDAR per vehicle because of the cost, because it's not, in level 3 or level 2, the burden of cost is on the customer. They need to pay for a car. It's very different than trucks or robotaxis, where the owner of the platform is not a single individual. You can justify the cost by the business that you are trying to improve by efficiency, but when it comes to a passenger vehicle, eventually cost is dramatically more important, and that cannot be done by using multiple LiDAR. So it's just a matter of the business case and the use case and the end owner. I mean, I can justify 10 LiDARs for a truck that saves 2 drivers that each one costs $100,000 a year, right? It makes a lot of sense. When it comes to a private vehicle, it doesn't.
Yeah, Omar, this is exactly the same response I got from Valeo and Mercedes when I attended their tech day in California, when they showed the Pro Pilot level 3 with the Scala. That's the same. It's all about business case, and I think you've just answered some of our other questions.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Omer, because obviously you have reduced the price of Innoviz 1 to Innoviz 2 by 70%. And in your estimation, once you get to this volume for passenger vehicles, right, that you're talking about, what price point do you see that being at? Is it $300 a LiDAR? Is it $1,000 a LiDAR to where it becomes pretty standard even on mass market vehicles? Where's that price point do you see that the tipping point for adoption gets reached?
Sure. So, obviously, even with a LiDAR that costs $1, you won't see it being used on all vehicles in the next probably 5 to 10 years, right? Because even using a LiDAR is complicated, and you need processing power and a lot of testing. Not all car makers are going to be using level 3 technologies as soon as the others. I mean, there are car makers that are usually adopting technologies faster than the others, and they want to use technologies faster than others. And then there is a price point that unlocks different brands and different categories of cars. So LiDARs don't need to cost $1 today. I think that the next entry point for at least 10% of the market is $500, and that's what we are targeting with the Innoviz 2. Beyond that, yes, I mean, the LiDAR would need to go lower, $300 and eventually $100. I mean, when you will see a LiDAR on every vehicle, it will be around $100, and then it makes sense. And I think that Innoviz 2 definitely can get to those levels. It's just a matter of industrialization, and I would say hardening the design. I mean, the situation right now is that you have different car makers, each one trying to ask for this or that, and some changes. They have some preference to, the different things. And it means that when you're doing a design, it's like one of the benefits of a certain design, it's flexibility without changing too much, and having to allow you to tweak and do things. And that means that a lot of the design needs to keep a lot of flexibility. Flexibility usually goes back, like invert to the cost, right? Because and it's if you look at a DVD player 15 years ago, it will be costing, I don't know, a few $1,000s. You would open it up, you'll see many boards and many electronics and flexes and optics. Once the industry has kind of like determined a certain, I would say, architecture, and determined a certain functionality, you start to harden it. You start to make things more, turn like FPGAs turned into ASICs, and then different ASICs become one chip, die over die, and everything becomes like a chipset that you build in tens of millions or more. And it's a stage in which the old industry is not at, right? I mean, but once you get the consolidation of architectures, and you will see, let give you an example. Let's say that I get an order now of 50 million LiDARs, okay? And I close a deal at a certain price point of, I don't know, $500 or so, hopefully. Now, my target right now is to make more profit of it. So if you think about the ROI, let's say I can spend, I don't know, $20 million in taking, this board into something much more lean. I would harden it the most I can, right? I can take all of those components, make a new chip, like a chipset. Like the ROI of investment is obviously very positive. It's all about volume that justifies an investment that allows a further cost reduction. Moving from Innoviz 1 to Innoviz 2, we dropped the price by about 70%, but it was mostly around an investment of R&D done around a very few components. The next step, in which we want to do another cost reduction of our product, there are other things that we haven't changed at all. I mean, this is Innoviz 1. Innoviz 2, if I would show you, you would actually see the same electronics. We didn't change it. It's actually somewhere else. Of course, this doesn't look like a product that costs $100. It's still very flexible. It still allows us. It's about, it's really about making a decision of hardening a certain design, because you want to make sure that the design is solid for many years, and you don't want to harden it as long as you want to keep some flexibility.
Right.
But it's achievable. It really is achievable.
And really, let me quickly follow up, Lay, and then you can take the last question. Are you seeing a squeeze on pricing in the short term, like an increase because of the supply chain issues and the supply issues? Are you seeing an increase in pricing in the short term in some of your commodities?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, right now the market is difficult with components, but the volume of the market, I mean, the LiDAR space is not that big to make it any effect. I mean, we sell a few thousand LiDARs, then it's not that meaningful. And I think that by the time that the market would scale to millions, I don't think that by that time that would be, continue to be an issue.
Right.
Innoviz 2 also has significantly less components than Innoviz 1, really a small portion of it. I mean, it's 1/4 of the components. That's how we managed to get to the 70% cost reduction. So no, I believe that by the time of the inflection point of the car market, that would be behind us.
A question to confirm. Are you not looking at the robotaxi, serving the robotaxi market?
We are. I mean, obviously,
you are. Okay.
I'll sell LiDAR to anyone who's willing to pay. And of course, we need to spread. I mean, we need to, put our chips on different players and, and expect that some of them would succeed and grow and etc. But in terms of focus, we are mostly focused on signing deals like with car makers that plan to go to high volume. I mean, there is no robotaxi right now company that I can get to a nomination of the volume that I get from a passenger vehicle. That's just too many years ahead of us. So I have to keep my focus where, I can sign a deal, not just R&D and selling a few samples, etc. Many LiDAR companies, by the way, that's what they do. You see a lot of announcements. I mean, the market there is so much noise in the industry. People don't see the difference between a serious production announcement than, here's a partnership with a company. I just sold them like 10 units and we did a press release together.
Yeah.
Everything looks the same.
Yes.
And, that's something that, that's part of the noise that we're dealing with. But, what can I do?
One more question from me, and then two, you can end with the Chinese smart EV startup question. So what is the end game for LiDAR?
LiDAR would be in every car, but much beyond that. I mean, a LiDAR is eventually a 3D camera, right? I mean, people tend to connect LiDAR equals a car. It's not. A LiDAR, it's a 3D sensor. And, if I would tell you I developed a camera, I don't think that the only thing that comes to your mind would be a car, even though cars are using many cameras. There are many applications for 3D sensing. I actually think that long-term, any 2D camera would be replaced with a 3D camera because there are many benefits of getting another layer, and interactions would be different. And we all talk about metaverse and augmented reality. Those are all relying on 3D data.
Well, iPhones already have LiDAR in them, right? So
yeah, definitely. So LiDAR is a strange name for a 3D camera. No, really. I mean, if you think about it, the VR goggle, the Oculus, right? I don't know if you've used it before. It's quite amazing. Eventually, it's a 3D display, right? I mean, you actually consume a 3D data, and the thing is, all of the data that is available in those goggles is completely synthetic because there's no way to film 3D today in a good way. So everything that you're able to consume today in those VR are mostly synthetic, and a LiDAR is a 3D live camera, which you could actually use. So I could have actually placed a LiDAR here on my room, and you would be wearing a VR goggles and actually see the room and travel in it because it makes it accessible. So LiDARs is just the first market that will, which will actually consume a lot of LiDARs in automotive. But there are many other markets that the adoption of LiDARs would translate to large adoption. Surveillance, construction sites,
farming.
Yes, I mean, we live in a 3D world, so using a 3D sensor somehow makes more sense than a 2D, and it will grow fast.
Okay, Omer, final question here. I don't know how closely you've been following the Chinese EV sector, but who do you think has a chance of becoming the first Chinese EV maker to go global, to be successful in Europe and in the United States?
Well, to be honest, I hope I'm not saying, I've been following obviously all of the big names, and we hear a lot about Baidu and Pony, recently several news. And of course, I'm sure there are many other players that are, very serious. And I don't want to make a bet because I'm probably kind of not in for sure. I don't want to insult.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
I don't want to
worries.
insult anyone for not mentioning him. So I'll pass on that question.
So, well, if you want to have an offline conversation about the Chinese EV landscape, we can tell you about it. Just give us a holler. But thank you for your time. This discussion was great. I learned a ton, and we're glad you were able to join us.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thanks again, Omer.
Thank you for your time. Hi, your co-host Lei Jing here. There's no doubt that LiDAR has become a prime-time product or technology in the smart EV era, driven in large part by Chinese companies like RoboSense and Hesai, which are finding their products increasingly equipped onto production vehicles and robotaxis in China and across the world in large quantities. Faster than mushrooms after the rain, as Omer puts it. For Western LiDAR suppliers like Innoviz, this is almost like David going up against Goliath because the Chinese companies right now have the advantage on cost, go-to-market speed, and local knowledge. Yet, many of them have only been around for not much longer than Innoviz. Listening to Omer, you can feel the drive, determination, and confidence coming from his military background. And obviously, by becoming a direct LiDAR supplier to a multi-brand, multi-regional global automaker, that gives Innoviz a huge leverage as far as China is concerned. It is also interesting that Innoviz is working with a Chinese partner, Liangdao Intelligence, which recently launched its own solid-state flash LiDAR. Will these partnerships translate to success in China? I guess time will tell, and we wish Omer and his team the best of luck.
Lei and I will be sharing more of our conversations with the men and women around the world, moving the EV, AV, and mobility sectors forward as part of this China EVs and More Max series. Some folks will be instantly recognizable, but some will just be people that are doing amazing things in the space that we think deserve to be highlighted. Don't worry though, Lei and I will continue to host our live weekly China EVs and More Twitter Spaces room that summarizes that week's most important news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility space. For those that can't catch the live show, you can find the China EVs and More pod on all major platforms or wherever you normally get your podcasts. As EV adoption reaches its global tipping point, it'll be even more important to stay updated on everything that's happening here. Lei and I are confident that China EVs and More is the best resource to do that. Until next time, as always, thanks for listening.